A couple of months ago, I made a review on the first Force Unleashed game, and I really enjoyed it. The lightsaber combat was great, the story was awesome, and there was a huge variety of different planets and environments from the Star Wars universe. The game also ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, so I was very excited to dive into the Force Unleashed 2, which was released 2 years after the original game. So in this video, I'm going to go over my thoughts and honest opinion of the Force Unleashed 2, and let you guys know if it is still worth it in 2021. The Force Unleashed 2 starts off with a bit of mystery. Starkiller is back and kept in isolation by Darth Vader and is being trained and forced to use the dark side. Starkiller then begins to regain his memories from the first game and discovers that he is in fact not the real Starkiller and is a clone of the original. The game starts off with this really awesome escape from Kamino, and even though you aren't technically the real Starkiller, he's still as ridiculously overpowered and badass as ever. And of course, the game's story is still layered with a lot of really cool and iconic characters from the Star Wars universe like Darth Vader and Boba Fett, along with the new characters from the first game like Juno and General Coda, which all just combines for a very thrilling and intense Star Wars story. Neither of the Force Unleashed games are longer canon, which may be disappointing to some, but it doesn't make the story any less enjoyable, and knowing that the game isn't canon gives the game a much bigger sense of freedom and ability to take risks in the story without being tied down to what happens in the movies. And after playing both games, even though I love them, I agree with Disney's decision to remove the games from the canon. Starkiller is extremely powerful and it's a bit too much sometimes, and it's kind of hard to believe that this kind of story could exist in between the movies, especially since there's never any mention of Starkiller. Again though, that for me in no way takes away from this really good story. It has the spirit and feel of a Star Wars movie while also shaking things up and making it feel completely new and original by using the new characters and blending them in with all the characters we know and love from the films. Probably the biggest issue with this story was just the length. This game is only about 5 hours long, which is just way too short in my opinion. The first game was about 8 hours, and with this game being only 5, there really wasn't a lot of cutscenes or different levels, and there isn't anywhere near the same amount of planets and different boss fights from the first game. The boss fights were one of my favorite parts about the first game, and in the Force Unleashed 2, there is only 2, and not only that, but I found the boss fights in this game to feel a lot more tedious. There's a ton of QTEs and button mashing, and when that's a majority of a boss fight, it really isn't that fun.
Those wrist restraints, give them a good shock.
My thumbs are so tired. Luckily, this game didn't require as much pre-game maintenance as the first game. The Force Unleashed 2 is completely fine. It supports higher resolutions on PC, and there's no audio bugs or anything. The only thing I had to do was remove the 30 FPS cap limit, which there's a very helpful Steam guide on how to change that to 60 FPS. It's still annoying to have to do stuff like this to get the game running how it should, but it only took a few minutes to get all sorted out. The lightsaber combat in this game is really fun. It's extremely satisfying, especially with the new dual-wielded lightsabers, new combos, and enemy dismemberment that allows you to remove limbs and heads from your enemies with the lightsaber, which just looks so cool, and it's surprisingly one of the only Star Wars games that has dismemberment, which is something we definitely need in the new games like Jedi Fallen Order. I will admit though that the combat can get pretty repetitive in the game and maybe a bit tedious at times, but I still think it's satisfying enough to where it doesn't get too bad. And again, the game's only 5 hours, so the repetition certainly is there, but it's not like you have to deal with it for too long. I definitely think they could have added a better progression system to the game and allow you to unlock more new abilities and moves as you progress through the game, and something other than just being able to upgrade and make your force powers and lightsaber skills stronger. The force powers are still one of the best parts of this series in my opinion. They're just a ton of fun to use, and I like how different enemy types are vulnerable to different force powers, like how the jet troopers are weak against force lightning, and the buzz droids are weak against force repulse. And they also added Jedi mind trick and the force fury, which if you don't know what force fury is, allow me to show you. Yeah, it's basically God. There wasn't as much enemy variety as there was in the first game though, which is really odd and disappointing. I still like how each enemy has a different weakness, but I mean, I feel as if I was fighting the same 5 enemy types throughout the entirety of the game, and it became really easy and predictable when you're only fighting the same enemies over and over. One of the best parts about The Force Unleashed 1 was the large number of planets and environments you encountered in each level, and there were a lot of iconic Star Wars planets that were really fun to play on. The Force Unleashed 2, being only 5 hours long, has only 3 planets: Kamino, Katonam, Doya, and Dagobah. And you only spend about 5 minutes in Dagobah, so really this game only has 2 fully designed and scaled planets, which they were very detailed and look awesome, but it was pretty disappointing to not have that large span of planets from the first game with Kashyyyk, Felucia, Raxus Prime, Bespin, and the Death Star, which isn't a planet, but I'll still count it because it's basically the size of one. The mission design is also very repetitive and has little variety. It just throws wave upon waves of enemies at you, with there occasionally being a parkour section and then a boss fight at the end. And again, I did play this game on PC, so I can't exactly speak for those of you who are looking to play on console, but on 1440p and 60 FPS, this game still looks fairly decent in 2021. It's obviously no Jedi Fallen Order in terms of graphics, but it's still definitely playable, and if you're looking to play an old game like this in the first place, graphics shouldn't discourage you from playing it. The game is available on Steam for $20 full price for those of you on PC. It also has backwards compatibility on Xbox, so you can play on there as well, even with the original Xbox 360 disc. It's also available on PlayStation Now for PlayStation users, but PS Now kind of sucks for old games because it runs on that original 640p PlayStation 3 resolution, so the game looks disgusting on there. Now, I think $20 is still a little overpriced for the game in 2021, especially since it's only 5 hours and you can easily finish it in a day if you wanted, so I'd personally recommend waiting for a Steam sale or getting a pre-owned copy for Xbox if that's how you want to play. And even though The Force Unleashed 2 certainly still has its flaws, it's still a really entertaining Star Wars story and has some really fun lightsaber combat, so I'd still recommend it in 2021, especially if you played the first game. If you want to see my review on The Force Unleashed 1, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check that out. And if you enjoyed this retrospective of The Force Unleashed 2 and are curious to see more of my reviews, I have made a ton of them for dozens upon dozens of old games, so feel free to check out my playlist and subscribe for more of those in the future. And other than that, thanks for watching and have a great day.